What's happening, everyone? Tom Bestwick here, PR and outreach specialist at Hallam. I hope you're keeping well. I hope you're keeping safe. I've been allowed to do another video. Crazy, right? Anyway, I'm going to jump straight into it. We're looking at reputation management again, and we're looking at how that corresponds with campaign management as that lockdown begins to ease and UK businesses start to reopen their doors over the coming weeks and months as we try and get back to a bit of normality, which I know that we're all craving right now. But without further ado, let me jump straight into it and I'll share my screen with you all. So anyway, here we go. So yeah, I've coined this as the 3 degrees of preparation. I've written a blog about this, so stop now if it's just something that you want to have a read about. The link will make sure it is copied above for you to click straight through to that. But if you do fancy watching this, take the moment now, pause this video, go and grab a coffee, go and grab a drink, get comfortable. It's going to be a hell of a ride over the next 10 minutes or so. And we'll have a look over the next 3 steps that I believe are going to be really important when it comes to reputation management and getting your campaigns right in the future. Before we start though, I want to start with a proper introduction to myself. So as I said at the beginning, my name is Tom Bestwick. I am the PR and outreach specialist here at Hallam. I joined towards the end of March during this lockdown. I've still not met any of my colleagues. I do everything through a camera, and trust me, it's I'm craving more than anyone to get back into the office at some point, but only when it's safe to do so, of course. My background, I've worked a lot in football. After that, I worked in leisure management and I worked in retail, working across the PR board. Really varied background, and it doesn't get any more varied than what I'm doing currently here with the team at Hallam. And I just thought I'd chuck in there that I am deeply passionate about coffee. Love coffee, love my football as well. I know I've not mentioned that there, but can't tell you how pleased I am to see the football back and how that's going to keep everyone morally boosted over the next few weeks as well. And yeah, heck, just please give me a follow on Twitter, give me a follow or an invite on LinkedIn. Love to talk to you all off the back of this. And see what you're all thinking when it comes to brand reputation management. Maybe even I can even help you further with a few chats off the back of this. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Let's really talk about this video. Let's talk about the 3 degrees of preparation and what that's all about for me in terms of the analysis and the research that I've done over the last few weeks. So as I mentioned, lockdown restrictions are beginning to ease now. We're seeing businesses are starting to reopen, and I feel like we're going to see a lot more of that over the coming weeks. So as part of this process, I believe there are 3 key stages that businesses are going to be needing to get right when it comes to that brand reputation and that campaign management that we're all so desperate to get right over the coming period of time. So I've got this down as there's the preparation phase, there's the response phase, and there's the rebound phase. And we're going to look at all 3 of those steps in more detail, what that looks like and what we can learn from that. Straight into preparation. So the first thing we've all got to accept is this is a new normal. It's a phase that has been said a lot over the last few weeks and the last few months, that we're in that new normal. Unprecedented times, as a lot of people like to say. I'm sick of that word, I'm sure you guys are. But I think it is important to appreciate the time that we're in. I think we have to appreciate what's happening. We have to appreciate the sentiments around that. I think what is a common theme is that staff, colleagues, customers, there is still that cautious and nervous feeling when it comes to COVID-19. And I think it's important that we need to match those sentiments. I think a lot of businesses have got this right, but this what I've got on the little computer screen there from Costa. I think we've all probably been to Starbucks or Costa at some point over the last couple of weeks since they reopened, but the little shelf that they've got going off where you can get your drinks, and people have loved that. They've tweeted about it, the conversation that they've created about making those steps of getting your coffee safe. It's really caught on, and people have really appreciated what the steps that they've put in place. So you can just do something as simple as just going to get a coffee. And I think that's something that it just comes back down to sentiment, what's important to people. And I'd like to touch on this actually in terms of those important factors. We mentioned the health and well-being there, but there are other things that other things that we can be doing to really not just putting shelves in. There are other things that we can be doing to proactively support people during this time. It comes down to completing rigorous risk assessments for employees, and thinking about how you communicate these effectively so that even before they're in the office, they've had a chance to really digest that information, come to terms with it, ask the questions that they may have off the back of those risk assessments. Just again, it comes down to security and clarity, and being proactive will really create that for your colleagues and your staff at this point. And I mentioned in there with your communications, keep it clear, keep it concise. Don't endorse any jargon right now. People just want to know what's happening. They don't want to be left in the dark, and they don't want to be trying to think extra hard of what the situation is and where they fit in with that. And I've put there at the bottom FAQ sheets and briefing sheets. They're quick, they're easy, they're effective ways of condensing this information for colleagues. It was something that I mentioned in my last video and my last blog piece, and I can't emphasize enough how effective those particular pieces of documentation can be to a business during this time. As part of this, we know that there are some other countries that are further down the line when it comes to COVID-19 and where they are in their economic regrowth, rebirth, if you like. One of the businesses, as part of my research, or one of the publications that I kept coming back to, was the Harvard Business Review. They've done this epic review of some of the businesses that have really thrived during this time, and have explained how they've done that as well. And I mentioned there in the left-hand side, I think pronounce that Supor. I hope I've got that right. Don't want to do them any disinjustice, because the work that they did for their colleagues was a real great example that I think a number of UK businesses can really follow and really learn from as they prepare to get their own businesses back on track. So as part of that, they produced very specific operational guidelines for every situation. And I know there are some clients here at Hallam that we deal with that have done exactly the same thing. Really impressive amounts of detail in terms of how that relates to different colleagues, different positions, different roles within the business. Are they in an office? Are they in a showroom? Are they out on the road? Do they mix and mingle? And it's important just to clarify all of those points to make sure that, again, everybody feels that security, that clarity, and they know exactly what they're walking back into when they're back in the office, and how their employer is doing everything they can to keep them safe. As part of that, Supor instituted health checks for employees and families. I mean, what a great initiative that is. And then beyond that, they also procured that preventative PPE equipment that we are seeing is so vital in our just daily lives now, when whether it's down just shopping or traveling or anything like that. It is becoming a part of life, and work is a part of our life. And it's really encouraging to see the steps that some businesses are taking to support their employees during this time. Another thing to consider, it was, again, I'm going to refer back to that first video I mentioned about getting your Google My Business page right, getting your social media pages updated. This relates to customers, but in terms of that communication, there is a real importance now to make sure that there's no confusion whether you're open, whether you're not open, what are your opening times like, have your closing times changed. McDonald's, we've seen them communicate that so effectively through the TV ad that they've done, but I completely understand that we're not all in a position where McDonald's are in. So yeah, it's just as simple. Let's make sure that Google My Business pages for your particular business are up to date. Your social pages are, your social media messaging states that to all of your customers. And it's just, again, it comes back to clarity, it comes back to sentiment, making sure that everybody's singing from the same page and is aware of the situation that you're in as a business. Excuse me. Okay, that leads us nicely on to point 2, the response. And as part of this, and I've said it right at the top there is a need to be prepared to, being prepared to adapt. I'm going to come back to sentiment, and just as part of the research that I've looked at, there are a number of things that are important to not only your colleagues and your staff, but your customers as well. I'm still thinking like that home working lifestyle. We have to remember not everyone has returned to the office yet. There is probably a particular base within your customers that are still working from home, and they're going to be for a long time to come. Naturally, that leads on to point 2, where we're looking at those people that are returning to work. They're looking at those safety measures and how life at work is going to be for them. Home entertainment, it was important before, it's still important now, and it's going to be important in the future. That ability to be social is just so important, whilst we're still integrating ourselves back into those social lifestyles that we're all still craving. I mentioned it earlier in this slide, but healthcare, hygiene and wellness is still so important right now, more so now than ever. And even just looking at mental health, I know we have Mental Health Awareness Week at the end of June, but data is showing us that 4 out of 5 adults are worried about the impact that COVID-19 is having on their life right now. And that is a scary statistic, and it shows that being able to be part of that conversation just opens up your business to a number of people that they probably weren't before. There has been a significant cut in luxury and non-essential spending. I know that we're seeing a lot of those non-essential stores reopening now, a lot of clothes stores, a lot of businesses that have been closed for weeks and weeks that are trying to get back into it. And then also, we've also got the UK's key workers that are still a big priority. A lot of people still thanking they have to be as well, thanking the UK key workers' work that they're doing, which is so vital day on day in this country and across the world. In terms of those sentiments and what's important to people, the piece that I've used there is a great relevance of how entertainment is relevant, and I think Netflix did this really, really well, where they changed their service to Netflix Party, I think it was called, and they were able to offer a service that you can not only just watch your favourite TV show and binge watch those box sets on your own, but you can also do it in a party now and get actual people together, so you can actually communicate about what you're watching at the same time. And it's pretty much what we're doing now. Do it over a camera so you can see each other's faces and you can actually have a chat about these things. Really great initiative, and it really fit that consumer sentiment that I'm talking about. There are other things as well, and we've seen a number of businesses. I'm talking about Dyson and Land Rover, Jaguar Land Rover, sorry, and there's a couple of clothes stores within there as well that evade me quite at this moment, but a number of those that have pivoted their businesses to provide PPE equipment, provide essential equipment to not only key workers but customers as well that are looking for it. And it's just looking at that consumer sentiment, and just ask yourself that question. I've said it there. Ask yourself, how can your business pivot to benefit the people that you're wanting to target? If you do that, you're opening up another door for yourself that maybe was closed before, and it's another business venture that could really benefit you in the short term as well as the long term. Think about how you can leave that positive lasting impression, and doing those things that I've spoken about will really do that. There's 4 more key points as part of that. I think positivity is just invaluable right now. We can't get enough of it. There is a lot of bad news happening in the world right now, and people just want something good to talk about. I know from my perspective, I find it hard to go on social media at this moment in time, just because of all the negative stuff that we're seeing. I only have to load up my news feed, and there is another piece of negative news that is happening. So to think about how you can provide something positive, something fun that people can latch onto and really talk about and thrive off the back of. Take this time to analyse your data and ask yourself whether your business can pivot to meet those consumer sentiments that I've met. Can you, and again, I mentioned this in the first video, but can you still support a cause that is close to your community's hearts? If you can do so, have a look and think about that, because again, this is still a great opportunity to do that and support something that is really trying to make a difference during this difficult time. And also, regular communication is key. Not only I've mentioned customers there, but think about how you can regularly still communicate with your teams, your staff, your colleagues. It's something we do incredibly well here at Hallam, where we hold those bi-weekly company updates, so everybody within the business fully understands the picture of where we stand as an agency, what the future looks like, what future initiatives we're looking like, and we're all allowed to talk about that and get involved in that and form groups to open those discussions and how we can make things better. Think about that as a business. There's nothing more invaluable than your colleagues and your staff, and getting them involved right now and keeping them fully in the loop it's just a commodity that you can't evade right now. I think it's really important. And something as part of the research that I was doing, recent research shows that email open rates have risen by 25%. So when it comes back to that customer communication, if you're going to target your customers by your email, now's the best time to do it, because that rises. It's an incredible rate that you guys and businesses across the UK should be really looking at and thinking about how you can get your messages across in an effective way within that medium. Right, we're on to stage 3 now, and we've focused a lot about internal communications, colleagues, staff and customers, and getting your pages right and information up to date and your communications on point. Now let's start thinking about our campaigns. Our campaigns have been on hold for a long time now, not just as an agency, but I'm sure this is something that agencies right across the UK will feel as well. A lot of businesses that have maybe a lot of exciting plans that they had in place prior to COVID-19, it's now starting to get to that point where we can start looking at how can we get those campaigns back live, how can we make a bit of a scene within what we're working on. Again, I'm going to come back to the Harveys business review, and one of the stats they showed, again, which I found quite interesting, was that China experienced a faster recovering rate than what was expected over a 6-week turnaround when businesses started to return. It got me interested, and I've recently been doing some work with our new CEO, Julio Taylor, on this in terms of what does the future look like for businesses across the UK. And I think something that he said really fit into that really well. I'm going to read out his quote to you as part of an exclusive column that he's done for The Drum that I worked with him on. He said at the time, "My message to brands out there is that what you were in February will not be as effective towards the end of this year when a degree of normality returns. It's going to be a different world, and it is going to be those brands that evolve with it, those that are smarter, that will be remarkable and stand out." And it's so true. It's absolutely so true. And we need to be thinking about how our campaigns are putting our messages across. How can we creatively do that? But also making sure that it still fits within the consumer sentiments and it is hitting those key messages that you as a business you want to hit, and that you're not tone deaf to the situation that we're still currently in. I'm very biased on this front. I worked in football for 4 years at Derby County Football Club before leaving in 2018. And when you look around football as an industry and a business, it really does, in my opinion, nail the consumer sentiment. It gets its messaging right in terms of key topics. And there's been a couple of great pieces recently in terms of how football got it right. We all know about Marcus Rashford's story recently, or is it Daniel Rashford? I'm not too sure. But we all know, in all seriousness, about the work that Marcus Rashford has done for school kids right across the UK in terms of making sure that they still have access to hot meals and food vouchers, which I think is just a fantastic initiative. And it shows that what can be achieved by one person, let alone one company, when you create a bit of momentum. And we all, I'm sure, know about Leyton Orient's story as well, as how they teamed up with Harry Kane. Again, they met that consumer sentiment by selling their front of shirt sponsorship to Harry Kane. And in terms of that, they put messages on there to the NHS, to Mind, and a local hospice as well, to really raise awareness of the work that they're doing, and to also thank them as well, which I think is just a fantastic initiative. And again, shows what can be achieved. Leyton Orient are not the biggest football club in the world. They're a League Two football club, but nevertheless, they met that consumer sentiment. They have really bought into what's important to people, and they've run with it incredibly well. So with that, again, ask yourself the question: is my audience ready for this campaign? Does it fit into the new world that we currently find ourselves in? As part of that future, we don't know what's around the corner. We don't know how this virus is going to develop, as much as we wish we did, and we knew how quickly things are going to return to normal. But we also have to be prepared for the very real possibility that we could be faced with setbacks when it comes to these campaigns. COVID-19 is not just going to go away. There isn't a vaccine ready. At this point, track and trace is still in its early stages. And we're seeing that threat of a second spike is very real. It's something that the government talk about on a very regular basis, in terms of that we're in a critical moment right now and we have to get it right. We still have to keep safe. And I know we're all really tired of the situation that we're in, and we're dying to get back around family and friends. But with that, second spike is a real possibility, and you have to be prepared for that. If you are running a campaign and we do find ourselves in that unfortunate position, be ready to pause, be ready to hit that pause button, because the last thing, again, you want to come across as is tone deaf and just be running a campaign just because you've launched it and you don't want to stop it. Try and, again, stick with consumer sentiment. That's what is important right now. And if you stick to that, you're going to be along the right lines along the way. So just some final thoughts from me before we do wrap up. It's a very common theme that is always spoken about when it comes to reputation, is that it is hard earned. It takes months and years of hard graft to get up to that position where you have got that reliable reputation, that good reputation that you've really worked hard for. But man, it's so easy to lose. And we're in a real critical stage right now where it is easy to lose if you don't get it right in terms of your consumer sentiments and the messages that you're putting out. It's something that's spoken about a few times now. Don't be tone deaf to this situation. And a badly timed campaign right now could do just as much damage to your brand than anything during this particular period that we're in. Check out the smiley face. But yeah, that's it. That's everything from me, guys. I think we've covered a lot in that period of time. There's a great deal that is happening on the reputation management and the campaign management front, and we just all need to be aware of it. So key takes from me: don't be tone deaf. Stick with the situation. Find out what people are interested and invested in. And just think about how you can, if your business is in a position where it can pivot, I would strongly urge you to think about that, and how you can match that consumer sentiment. But at the same time, let's think about those campaigns. There's an opportunity. We've got to be creative. We are getting closer to that normal that we're all so desperate to have and to hold right now. But also just consider the fact that at any point, this situation could go backwards again. We've seen it in China, as I've just shown you on that slide, and it's just being aware. It's just been current with the situation, keeping on top of what the latest guidance is, what the government are saying, and just adapting accordingly and being prepared to do so, and keeping your colleagues and customers and your staff fully informed of that. Do that. I think you're going to be onto a real winner when it comes to your reputation management, and really enhancing the good work that you've put in over such a strong period of time. But that's it for me. I hope you've enjoyed everything that I've spoken about. I know there's a lot to digest there, so I hope you have found it helpful. I said in the first video, I'd love to hear from businesses out there about how reputation management is for them, the different steps that they've put in place to really get everything set during this period that we're in. Hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Peace out, guys.